The whole order in council thing, he really needs to stop doing that because it's going to get sillier as time progresses. Hello and welcome back to the Radical Center, everyone. We hope you missed us. We missed you, and we are back with some very exciting information, revelations. I don't know, what do we call them? Insights?
News
Whatever it is. We're back.
or radically stupid opinions. How about that?
No, we don't use the S word, but we are certainly using the word radical. So the biggest news in this country this week is there is a new federal cabinet that's been sworn in. Mark Carney is the new prime minister. He is getting right back to work, and he has sworn in a new cabinet. What do you think, Cody? What are your, first impressions of a new cabinet? What do you think?
Okay, well, last week I said that if you were a conservative, I was going to piss you off, and if you were a liberal, I was going to make you happy. Well, there's going to be a little bit of both in this episode today. So, first, I'll give my general impressions, and you can give your general impressions, and then we'll just talk about specifics because I think there's a lot of tea there, so to speak. But here I was last week commending the prime minister for not totally dropping the ball on his meeting with Trump. And now 66 days later, I'm totally speechless, and it's not in a good way. This prime minister was elected partially on change. And his biggest opportunity to do that was the cabinet shuffle. And I think that it was totally bungled. His first major decision was to take all of the top Trudeau ministers and shuffle them around to make it look a little bit different. You have people like Melanie Joly, Anita Anand, Sean Fraser, Stephen Guilbeault, and even Chrystia Freeland. And a lot of those people have tarnished our standing on the world stage. They've significantly damaged our military. They made the housing crisis worse, and they've even blocked natural resources. But what's more interesting is in the case of the former finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, she ruined our country's finances to the point where we have more debt, more spending, and we've never been worse off. Like there's very few people that are feeling better off than they were 10 years ago. And I do get it. 50% of the cabinet is new. I'm not discrediting that at all. And you do need people with experience in your cabinet. But it doesn't mean that you put the people with the worst experience in the same top positions and just shuffle them around. And somebody said to me this week, they said, Cody, this is like Apple releasing the iPhone 17 and calling it new when we all know they just changed a few things and they made the battery life just a little bit better. But I do think that this entire cabinet is the top Trudeau cabinet ministers just moved around to look new. And the ministers responsible for inflation, weak military, the housing crisis, and even bungling some of the tariff response are some suddenly getting a promotion. If I'm pulling wire in an apartment building and none of my lights or my plugs work, I don't get a promotion. I get fired.
So I share some of your frustrations, especially with the shuffling around of Jolie, Freeland, some of the same people who have been around for a long time. And you're right, they are responsible for, some of the messes that we have found ourselves in. I am happy that Jolie got demoted. I call that a demotion from going from Foreign Affairs. Certainly, I would have been less happy if she was still in the role. But here's the political consideration. This man, Carney, just won a leadership race. He's coming into a party where he knows almost no one, right? And he doesn't have, and political parties kind of work like this. Like, everybody, from the Conservative Party, everybody's somebody's person.
Mm-hmm.
It's little cliques that make up a big political party. So he needs them, not necessarily to survive in government, because I don't think I don't think he has to worry about that. I think he'd be fine if he sent Jolie and Freeland packing. From the average voter's perspective, I don't think anyone's going to miss them. But I think they have followers within the party, and I think he's trying to keep a party together that basically almost bled to death under Trudeau. in his last 6 months. So I think he's trying to have some sort of unity for the country, but also unity for the Liberal Party as well. And I think it's a balancing act. I think it's a very difficult thing to do. I think he's also trying to unite the country by bringing new people in, fresh faces, people I didn't think would be in cabinet. I was quite surprised to see some of the names that I saw. One thing that really stood out to me was the fact that you have some very prominent voices who are who have provided strong criticism of what's going on in Gaza, actually in cabinet. That wouldn't have happened even, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, even under a Liberal government. It certainly signals a lot of change, but I understand what you're saying. It's kind of like it's the same, but there's an undertone of serious change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I would say. Like I'm not denying that there is change in the cabinet.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that even
It just looks the same.
It looks the same, but it also is the same at the top. Ministers that are out front, in front of the Canadian public, tackling the most serious issues that this country faces. The same ministers are just moved around a little bit. And again, I'm not denying that there is change. I just think that, and especially with the scrums with the cabinets afterwards, like it was just atrocious. Like I'm almost speechless because there was no communication strategy on day one of having a new cabinet. And I understand Trudeau was very strict on his cabinet and stomped out any type of dissent within the ranks. I've gone off on that part. What I will say, to compliment Carney, to give him a little bit of grace, is that keeping Dominic LeBlanc in the portfolio with the US is a good thing. Even during the Trudeau-Trump drama, he rightfully urged calm, and he told Canadians not to get caught up in the day-to-day musings of Donald Trump. However, I would have put him in foreign affairs because he really is a foreign minister, but just for the United States. There are some new faces that are going to make some wings of the party happy. There are going to be some faces that are going to make some wings of the party upset. But I think that Mark Carney also missed out on a huge opportunity to appoint a young person to cabinet. Young people, especially young men, are flocking to the Conservatives because of the cost of living and affordability. And for the first time, 3 people born in this century were elected. That was Liberal MP, is it Fairs El Sud? I think that's his name, from Mississauga Centre.
Faris, yeah.
You have Amandeep Sohi from Brampton Centre. And you have Jake, his last name, I think it's Swatsky. I think that's how you say it, from BC. And I just think that some of these people deserve to be in cabinet. And it has been done before. If you look at Sam Hoosterhoff in Ontario, he was elected at just 19 years old. And by 25, he was already in the cabinet. And also, I know they have a minister of jobs. I don't think this is going to matter to the Canadian public as much. But I think Mark Carney did the Conservatives a favor by not appointing a minister of labor. And if I were Pierre Poilievre, I would still appoint a shadow minister of labor to show contrast. So there's a lot of bad things about this cabinet. One or two good things that I will say is that he left Dominic LeBlanc where he is, and Melanie is no longer the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Those are the 2 takeaways. I just think that, like we've said this before on the podcast, Canada used to be this peacekeeping force in the world. No matter what world conflict there was, when 2 sides, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 30,000 sides, couldn't come to an agreement in a conflict, Canada would always put up their hand to be a peacekeeping force. And between the conflict in the Middle East and the conflict in Europe, Canada has not been that leader on the world stage. And I know what peacekeeping can do. because my own uncle served in Bosnia in the Canadian Special Forces. And I have never been more ashamed of my foreign minister as when she was leading it. There is an element of me criticizing pretty much everything about this cabinet, but I'll also say that let's wait and see what comes of it.
Yeah, and I agree with that because, it's the prime minister at the end of the day that's going to set the direction. It's not going to be the foreign minister. It's not going to be her choice, not going to be her decision. It's going to be the prime minister that sets the agenda. And at that time, not that I'm defending Melanie, don't get me wrong, but at the time, there was a different prime minister who had very, very strong personal positions that he took on many different things, including some economic issues and, the carbon tax and and all of those things that he felt very strongly about. And he set that agenda. And now we're going to see something different because this is a different guy with a different head on his shoulders. And he's going to have a different perspective on everything. He's also quite interested in policy because he's not your average politician who just got into it and found himself rising through the ranks. He's former governor of 2 central banks. He's going to pay close attention to the policy. I think he's going to get into the weeds of things. So I would imagine that there's going to be I think there's going to be more central direction from the prime minister's office to this cabinet, which there was during the Trudeau years. Everybody knows that. But I think it's going to be a different direction. So even the portfolios that you would have seen ministers leading in one direction, you might see, will be the exact same minister, but a different minister leading in a different direction, even though they were part of the same crew. So we'll see how it goes. Mark, we are looking forward to watching and following along. He also signed an order in council for the middle class tax cut, and other parties are not sure, or they have not said whether they're going to support it or not. What do you think of that? What do you think? First of all, what do you think of this whole him signing papers? I saw something by Garnett Genius. Is it Genius? Is that how you say it? I've met him once, but I can't remember how to pronounce his last name.
Whatever. I screw up names all the time. So you're more than welcome to make me look a little bit better.
My apologies, Garnett. So I saw a TikTok of him or a video of him, and he goes,
I saw it too.
Am I doing this right, Brian? He's like, I'm signing a paper, and it actually means nothing. So I thought that was funny. What do you think? What do you think of this new thing that Carney seems to like doing?
I'm glad you brought that up because that was where I was going to start. So okay. You really kicked it off really well.
Look, well, not me, the MP.
Yeah.
Made me laugh today. I was like, wow, this is so funny.
It was a funny video, and I was laughing out loud for sure. The interesting thing about the way he signed this order in council is that it looked like he was doing exactly what Donald Trump does when he signs an executive order. Canada versus the US, an American executive order actually has power. Mm-hmm. Canadian order in council does not. And for a party and a prime minister that just kind of spent the last few months talking about the big mean orange man from the South, it's really ironic that within the first day or two of meeting with your cabinet, that's how you would start it off. The only thing that he missed out is he didn't pick it up and show it around the room and show his big signature. And he's missing a big Sharpie too. So, but again, it is what it is. But look, when it comes to the middle class tax cut itself, I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Any tax cut is a good tax cut. I wish what they were proposing were what the Conservatives were, or what the Conservatives were proposing during the election. Who knows? It may get to that number of up to 15% that the Conservatives were proposing. But I think that the opposition, not just the Conservatives, but the NDP and the Bloc, what they're saying is, if this is a straight up bill that says it's going to be a middle class tax cut, it seems like he will get close to unanimous a vote on that. But if they're going to play games with this, and there are strings attached, and there are funny business, and there's wedge issues thrown in there to throw Conservatives off, to wedge them, then that's a problem. Mark Carney is a new prime minister. The tone seems to be different. So if I were willing to bet, I hope anyways, that he's not going to throw a wedge issue in there. I think that he may actually put a actual straight up middle class tax cut before the House, and let's see how that goes. The previous Liberal government, they did the same thing. So if he wants to show that he's different, then he should just take whatever the number is going to be and just pass a straight up tax cut, put it on the floor. But I think the jury is still out on this one, just simply because like the bill hasn't been put on the table, so it can change. So there's two outcomes to this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's too early to really make a call on this. But I also agree with you, within the current climate that we're living through and the struggles Canadians are having, tax cut is certainly welcome. But it's just the devil's always in the details, and we'll figure out what this bill looks like at the end of the day when it's actually proposed. Yeah, the whole order in council thing, he really needs to stop doing that, because it's going to get sillier as time progresses, and it's just not how our system works, right? And like I don't know what the point of that is. You can just make an announcement that we're putting forward this tax cut, and it looks better. I don't even think it looks good. Like, to be honest, like from a communications perspective, it does not look good that you're sitting there signing a piece of paper like a king, like, or Trump. Like, I don't think that looks good. I prefer an announcement where you stand up, which is what they do typically.
Yep. And what I would do too, if he really wants to be different, what I would do is if they're able to whip enough votes to the point where, the Conservatives, the NDP support it, the Bloc and the Green Party and whatever, and the NDP, what I would do is I would hold a press conference with all the party leaders and say, look, Canadians voted for a minority government. I, as the new prime minister, said that I was going to work together with the other parties to get things done to Canadians. And here we are, all of us together are saying that the cost of living is so bad that, it's not a time for politics. And that's what I would do.
Yeah, for sure. So, Mark Carney, if you are listening to us, and we hope you are, enough with this signing orders in council. Like, just put it to rest. Nobody likes it. It's not, nobody cares. Get back to announcements, nice backdrop, travel the country, go one place to another, make announcements. Look at Doug Ford. Look at what Doug Ford does. Just, copy what works. All right. Moving on to the provincial government. Speaking of Doug Ford, the Ontario budget is a plan to protect Ontario, has been unveiled. That's what it's called, a plan to protect Ontario. It will have lower than expected deficit this year. And there's going to be a Protect Ontario fund with up to $5 billion for businesses affected by tariffs, increased tax cut from 10 to 15 for Canadian-controlled corporations investing in Ontario. He's going to end the tolls on the 401 East and heavy instruments in mining and critical minerals. Let's talk a little bit about the provincial budget. You have a lot to say about that, Cody. What do you think?
Yep. So this is the point in the podcast where the Liberals are going to be happy with me and the Conservatives are not going to be so happy with me. So pissing off everybody at the same time while also making everybody happy at the same time. But this is the radical center. So I'm going to be as tough on Liberals as I am on Conservatives. And no pun intended, maybe there is a pun, but I've really struggled to find the balance in this budget. Like, to be completely honest, I've thought about it over the last 24 hours because that's how long it's been out. And I've sort of landed where Brian Lilly is of the Toronto Sun, where he said that, the bad news is that the deficit is more than double, but the good news is that it could have been worse. And during the campaign, I criticized Doug Ford for speculating about injecting tens of billions of dollars into the economy without a plan. And it's yet to be seen if this money is going to be inflationary or not. I don't think it is, but we'll see how it pans out. But with this budget, we all know that this budget was 100% drawn up during a time where Donald Trump was in the news every day, threatening many different things, right? He would talk about trade. He would talk about telecoms, banking. And recently he was talking about the film industry. But that has largely subsided. The federal government seems to be getting a productive dialogue with the United States. And I hope that there's a deal. And as I've said from the very beginning, Donald Trump is not the only challenge that we face in this country. This budget seemed to be focused on one person, and it wasn't Doug Ford, it was Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not cause inflation, didn't cause the housing crisis or the skyrocketing crime. And while it may be for many different reasons, and even I was listening to Bonnie Crombie on Greg Brady today, and I thought, holy shit, I'm actually agreeing with this woman for once in my life. Because she said exactly, almost verbatim, what I just said. The NDP as well. Both of the opposition parties, yes, they're doing their job. They're going to oppose almost 100% of the time. But I do agree with what they're saying, that this budget is a missed opportunity because of the cost of living, because of the healthcare crisis. And, it's just, to me, I think the budget fell flat. Other than Donald Trump, I don't see what this budget is going to do for the province. And I do understand that what they're doing in this budget is they're projecting the worst possible outcome. They were just elected on this budget. But where things can start to go south for Doug Ford is if we move away from Donald Trump, and now he's put all the eggs in the basket, much the same with the federal government. If you put all your eggs in the basket of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump largely goes away, then what are you left with? Then do we come back to healthcare? Do we come back to public transit and other issues? But that's generally what I think. I don't think it was terrible. I don't think it was like an F for failure, but I also don't think it was a B minus.
I agree. I think there was focus specifically on Donald Trump and, a little bit of the congestion that, maybe will help him get away from that tunnel under 401 conversation. But I think you're right. I think there's other things in this country, other issues in this country that need to start getting addressed. You're right. Also, the Donald Trump cloud is going to start to wane, right? I think it's going to, especially now that he seems to like Carney, he seems to want to make a deal. I don't know why. Maybe his internal polling is telling him he needs to calm down, probably, because he's changing direction on a few different things. So Ford is going to have to start paying attention to local issues, things that are impacting Canadians. The housing crisis is number one. That's still a big concern. There's still issues on around supply. There's still issues with, how much, municipalities are building and supporting building more. So I completely agree with you. I think it's not like a horrible budget, but there's other things that need to be taken into consideration that they need to start paying more attention to and not focus on one particular issue. Let's talk a little bit about Bonnie Crombie. You mentioned her. Things are about to get interesting. I think. Nate Erskine, who is a member of parliament, who is her main leadership rival in 2023. Yeah. I should remember all these details. I was involved quite a bit. But yes, he did not receive a cabinet position. He was the housing minister for a very short period of time, and he made it very clear publicly that he is not happy about it. He is not happy that he did not get a portfolio. Before that happened, he previously had announced that he was not running again for federal politics. And then when he became the housing minister, he decided he would run again. And now Carney decided not to appoint him to cabinet, which I understand is very difficult news to receive. He was very popular as a housing minister because he's got a lot of ideas on housing. He's a young guy, really appeals to the young generation, really appeals to them. And when I say young generation, I mean younger than me, because him and I are about the same age. Now the rumor is, word on the street is that Nate is going to come back and take on his old rival in the leadership review that is expected to take place in the fall. I believe it's in September. And that is going to be something that is very interesting to watch. You and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, that if somebody wants this leadership, she will be gone. And if nobody wants it, she will stay. It's starting to look like someone is going to want it. That's all I'm going to say right now. What do you think, Cody?
So let's go back to election night. She didn't win her seat. Two reasons was people didn't really like her as much as she thought. And she pissed off one of the most popular politicians in this province, which is Patrick Brown. And he put his full force, his full machine into that riding, and it showed in the results because she lost. I also said I didn't think she was going to resign on that night, and she didn't. But I said she may stay on, but it doesn't give her any credibility. You had said that party status that's not a thing. Like, that's not a benchmark, I think were your words, right? So I think that you are right. And with Nate, he does seem to capture a progressive element of the left that is very powerful. The type of people who will mobilize and get behind the candidate who supports their vision of the province, the country, etc., etc. So, and I take it, there was something written in Polly Corner. You had just mentioned some of what was written. I think she could be in trouble. And I was thinking this week, some leaders, they have a base of support of people that will be behind them 100%.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with members of your caucus, like Pierre Poilievre, for example. He has, 10 to 12 MPs that are diehard Pierre Poilievre supporters, and they will go to the end of the earth to protect them. And I don't see that with Bonnie. I don't see people coming out and unequivocally.
No.
Right. So
Nate has that. So only, it's something interesting. It's something that there are some politicians most politicians are like this. Like, if they're doing well, lots of people are around them and everybody loves them. And if they're not doing well, people just, have other things to do and they don't really care. Some politicians, Nate is one of them. They have diehard supporters. People who are like, they just believe in them so strongly, and they will go through, let's walk through fire together kind of thing. Bonnie does not have that.
And with an element of that, for people who don't know, who haven't run a campaign, been involved in a campaign, it's not just about the window dressing of I've got, 1,000 people at a rally, or I've got, a lot of people standing behind me and they're all clapping and they're all smiling. The only thing that matters in politics is money, volunteers, and how many votes that you can get, whether it's a leadership race or a general election. And Nate, to his credit, he can do that. He can mobilize those people, right? In a way that Bonnie can't. And that's a pretty powerful thing to have in your hands. And like I said, even when Bonnie was the mayor of Mississauga, what happened is when Hazel got behind her, that helped. It didn't win her the election, but it helped. And because she was the incumbent, incumbents win like 80 to 90% of the time, especially in municipal politics, just because of name recognition. But Bonnie doesn't have that. Now she has to fight against pretty much everybody else but herself.
It's a different game. You can't take municipal politics and what works in municipal politics and copy paste it to the provincial level. It just doesn't work that way. I was going to say something about, I don't think he even needs to sign up members right now, because I don't think the members expired that he already signed up. This wasn't that long ago.
Oh, okay. But I'm just saying, I'm saying in general, because he's gonna.
What I'm saying is he probably can build on what I have to double check the rules. I've been a little bit out of the game for a couple of years now. Not a couple of years, since,
So just for our listeners at home who don't know how it works, when you run a campaign, you collect data, right? So the data is not just people who support you. It's also people who don't support you, right?
Yeah.
And those are the people that you don't want to knock on the doors of, because you don't want them showing up to vote for other people. But yes, what Noka is saying is correct in the sense that because he still has 100%, he still has the data from when he ran previously, he can use that. And I'm pretty sure that the party will also give all the campaigns a generic set of emails, phone numbers, not just supporters of them. So yeah, I guess you're right. You're right.
And I think he also has his network of organizers throughout Ontario pretty active. And now all he has to do, Nate, if you're listening to this podcast, all you have to do is go back to your data, the information you already have, which I'm pretty sure, I don't think they've expired yet. I have to double check. Double check the party's constitution. I could be wrong. But go back and reconfirm all these supporters that you already had, right? Because they're more happy with Nate now than they were back then, because he's done better after he lost that leadership. Sometimes you lose and you grow from it, right? You become better. And people got to see him as a cabinet minister, a federal cabinet minister, even though it was just for a few short months. It's good. So reconfirm the support that you already have. And he lost by very, very little, right? He didn't lose by much. And then he has to approach people who are dissatisfied or disgruntled, who may have supported her in the leadership race. He might know one or two. But approach those people, try to get them on board, because they're probably looking for an alternative given the results of the election and just how her leadership has played out. And then talk to his buddy, who was his running mate towards the end, Yasser. They had this little deal going on between them. I'm sure they're still friends. They're both on Parliament Hill together. And talk to him and solidify his supporters and try to get his organizers on board with Nate. And he does that. He walks through this leadership review, wins the thing. I can't imagine that he will be heavily contested for the leadership after that, because that's going to be very, very clear that this guy's a real organizer and no one's going to want to mess with him.
Well, who else would there be, right? There's not, like, no offense, maybe offense. I don't really give a shit. For honestly, even like Stephen Del Duca, when he ran, the slate of candidates were not that great. There's not that much charisma. Even during Bonnie's race, she benefited largely from just not having, other than Nate, not having a strong opposition at all. Like, I can't think of a time where the Ontario Liberal Party, since, I don't know, maybe since I've been alive, have come up with a charismatic person who can capture an audience, right?
The talent pool is shallow. You're very right.
Yes, there you go.
The talent pool is very shallow.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Right. So, he could, build this plane right in the sky and it might work out really well in his favor, right? He might take this, this not getting into cabinet as an opportunity to regroup, refocus on his original goal, which I think from an organization perspective is within grasp. It's within reach. Like, this is not that hard. If he wants it. If he doesn't want it, that's a different story. If he's kind of like, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore, it's understandable.
And I think it would be just knowing his, we'll say, progressive leanings.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he would make a very good argument to NDP Liberal switchers. I think that there will be a lot of NDP seats that would be in play in the next election, whenever that might be. I think that he would put a lot of NDP seats in play. And then at that point, you're not just looking at party status, you're actually looking at, leader of the opposition, right?
Yeah, potentially. But I also think that he will have difficulty going up against Doug Ford if he doesn't move to the center himself. I like.
Oh yeah, we're not even there yet.
We're not there. We're not there. But like, I like Nate, but there's certain things like, him, consistently supporting and defending the carbon tax after it's been killed. Like, we got to move on from that. We got to move to the center a little bit, because he has to appeal to a broader audience. The thing about Nate is that the people that love him, love him, love him, right? But the people who don't really care for that, who aren't really like that passionate about the stuff that he's very passionate about, won't really give him a chance. So that's where he has to grow. That's his challenge. But you're right, we're too far from that. Nate, if you're listening, step by step. But, I think, and I'm not trying to egg anybody on. I know people are going to be like, oh, Noka is just, I know.
Egg them on. Egg them on.
What Ontario Liberals are going to say after watching this segment, okay? No, because egging people on. What is she doing? Why is she doing this? I get it. I'm saying things from an objective point of view. Nate has a very, very good chance of, really focusing on this leadership review, making it happen, and then basically, walking right through the leadership race and getting the prize that he wanted to get in the first place a couple of years ago. That's all I'm saying. I'm not egging anybody on. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. Best of luck, Nate, if you decide to do it. If you don't, if you prefer to just hang out and do whatever you do, enjoy your life.
And the really ironic thing about this is if this does happen and he does proceed with that, that's sort of what was rumored to have happened with Aaron O'Toole and Pierre Poilievre, because it's been rumored that Pierre Poilievre really whipped up caucus to vote against Aaron O'Toole to get him to be removed. So it'd be kind of poetic if Nate took from the Pierre Poilievre playbook and tried to get rid of his own leader per se. But it'll be interesting. I mean, if there's going to be a bunch, I guess there'll be that. If there's that leadership race, we'll have the NDP leadership race. And I don't know, a conservative leadership race. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Could happen. Stranger things have happened. Or, if we're still around in 2 years, then maybe a provincial leadership race. We never know.
Yeah, I think, it's going to be certainly very interesting for sure. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Again, I'm not egging anybody on to do anything, but we do
keep saying that. You keep saying you're not egging anybody on.
But it
you're
sounds
trying
like
to convince people that you're not egging people on. So
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I am a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, commercial break. Wait, we don't have any commercials.
We don't have commercials. Well, thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Radical Center. We hope you continue to join us. We'll bring you more exciting news, more exciting episodes, more insightful dialogue. We'll see what happens. We'll see how many leadership races we'll see. We'll see how many more how many more orders of council signatures we'll see, and maybe we'll keep you in the loop about all of that. So thank you again, and thank you, Cody, for joining us. And enjoy your long weekend. This is a beautiful, beautiful long weekend, except tomorrow it's going to be a little rainy here in the GTA. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your long weekend.
Take care, everyone.